All right, good evening. The Rancho Public Schools Board of Education meeting for Monday, February 24th, 2025 is now called to order. If all would please arise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, JC, can you do a roll call for us?
President Galbraith?
Present.
Vice President Morgan?
Present.
Secretary Tyler?
Present.
Board Member Tripp?
Present.
Board Member Miller?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We'd like to welcome everyone out to our meeting tonight. We'll just get right to it. We'll start with our introductory comments by our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Visu Cleveland.
Thank you. And again, welcome. We're glad that you were here this evening. We did not have any board, committee, or workshop sessions that were held today before the board meeting, so there's nothing to report out about that. We do have a couple of important board reports this evening. The Rio Rancho Board is asked to approve and accept a donation from Leadership Sandoval County and TLC Plumbing. And Dr. Christopher Johnson, who of course is the Rio Tech principal, will be sharing some information with you about this proposal. This proposal is regarding an HVAC refrigerated air conversion facilities project at Ernest Stapleton Elementary, and I can tell you it's a very exciting proposal. The second report discusses the crosswalk between arts integration and Montessori. The board was given several articles, I think about 15 studies that describe the commonalities that exist between these two approaches to elementary education. And the presentation this evening will be made by Janice Chenault, Elementary School Improvement Officer, and Dr. Kurt Schmidt, our Executive Director of Fine Arts. This item is also on the business agenda as well, and the board will be asked to consolidate the two programs at Sandia Vista. And again, we have found a lot of commonalities, crosswalks, and I really hope you did have a chance to read the research and the articles, but I think they were pretty strong. And one of the things I would note is at least half of the articles came from the Montessori schools and from Montessori journals. So I hope you did have a chance to review that. We also have a request from the board this evening to consider approval of a Project Lead the Way grant. This request will be presented by Larry Davis, our Director of Career Technical Education for the district. This is a $20,000 grant from Project Lead the Way Solution Center, and it has been awarded to Mountain View Middle School. We're excited to be able to do more things at the middle school level. And then we will have a presentation this evening on the draft calendar for 2025-2026. It will be presented by Human Resources Director Peggy Johnston. The district is waiting until the end of this legislative session to be able to finalize our academic calendar. At the present time, though, we're not seeing any really significant changes that would have a major impact on the calendar. Obviously, we are hoping that we will be able to secure the same amount of professional development for secondary as we do for elementary. And we have had some presentations in Santa Fe regarding that. Renee Salcedo and Lauren Hatch have been there for making the case to treat both levels the same. The required 1140 hours is still the mandate for all public school districts in New Mexico. We also had a request from Board Member Tripp to consider one additional name for the New Mexico Association of School Boards Award. This award is Excellence in Student Achievement, and it goes to individuals in our community or in our district who have improved outcomes for students. And so this is one of the top awards from the NMASB. And we have one, I believe Mr. Tripp has one more nomination he would like to make. That will be presented, of course, by Board President Galbraith. And then we did have some requests for proposal. These will be presented by Michael Madrid, our Director of Purchasing and our Chief Procurement Officer. And the board is being asked to look at two things this evening. Consider the awarding of RFP number 2025-16 for the COO's office. And this is a program review of special education. This review will highlight areas of success and will hopefully identify any recommendations for continuous improvement. We've always been committed to continuous improvement in all of our program areas. And then the second request is to consider an award for RFP number 2025-17 for facilities. And this is for architect design services for Cleveland High School, classroom addition, and security in their vestibule area. And so, as you know, Cleveland is out of every single classroom. We boarded up every common open area, and they are in need of additional classroom space. And so that will address the RFP will address the need to open some additional classrooms. And are there any questions or concerns or anything that you would like more information on? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just have really quick, Tyler, is there a way to switch these screens over here so they show the PowerPoint instead of myself? I just don't want to see myself giant right here. If not, it's really not a big deal. We'll now go to reports. So we'll start with our first. We'll invite Dr. Chris Johnson up from our Rio Tech principal, and he'll go do our donation from Leadership Sandoval County and TLC Plumbing.
Madam President, real quick, I think we need to approve
you're right.
executive.
I got so distracted by my up there.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocations.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Thank you, Board Member Tyler.
Okay, it's usually me that jumps the gun.
I even marked it off on my thing like we had done that. So once again, come on up.
Okay.
President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board, thank you so much. So as you know, Rachel Aker and myself were selected for Rio Rancho Public Schools this year to participate in Leadership Sandoval. Great experience. So Leadership Sandoval develops leaders committed to enhancing Sandoval County's quality of life. Throughout the 10-month program, participants refine leadership skills, explore local challenges, and learn to drive change. Graduates join a network of alumni serving on boards and committees countrywide, and I know several of the leadership here in Rio Rancho Public Schools has attended Leadership Sandoval, so it's a great thing. Part of that 10-month commitment is a community project. So ironically, Rachel and I were both selected as leaders for different groups. So we have two 8-member groups that are working with communities. So in October, we presented our group projects that we worked from October till May. My group selected Watermelon Ranch. We did request Ernest Stapleton early on in the process, and I know Rachel did as well. Unfortunately, the Leadership Sandoval board said, let's go with this one. Well, Rachel and I started talking. I talked with Cheryl Clark and said, hey, here's what we need. So we did loop in some of our other members. So I'm joined Carlos Robles, who works for TLC, Nathan Lopez, who is from Albuquerque Winair, Brianna Al Nasser is from Leadership Sandoval, Elise Gibbs from Stapleton. So we met with facilities, we met with our groups from Leadership, TLC, and we said, what are some of those needs? So the needs for Stapleton is a complete refit of 2 portables where they've run out of space and need those HVAC units. So when we reached out to TLC, he reached out to Nathan, I'll let them talk a little bit about what they're going to be providing for that. We're also going to be securing 6 buddy benches and some paint to do sensory pathways for leadership, but we'll bring that to another board meeting once we get that donation. So I'm going to invite Carlos up here to talk about TLC and Nathan to talk about Albuquerque Winter.
Awesome.
Hey guys. He told you they're running out of room there at Ernest Stapleton, so we want to do everything we can to help. There's 2 portables, which is 4 systems. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get all 4, but we were able to house one full replacement for 1 system, which I was told 2 classrooms. They're both identical. If you have the proposal up there, it's 2 traditional split systems, a furnace on the inside, coil on the inside, and then a condenser on the outside. TLC is willing to, we're going to purchase one of the equipment ourselves from Nathan Lopez. He's the owner of Albuquerque Winter, and then he himself is going to donate one himself. And my work will do the install, bring it up to code, have it inspected. The only thing that's not included in this is we have a bid for the electrical for the circuits to be ran, but it's not for any kind of panel upgrades. I just want to make sure that's pretty clear. But when we went to go take a look at it, it didn't appear that y'all needed it. They seemed like there was plenty of room. I showed pictures to my electrician, so that should not be a problem at all. And it's, like I said, I wish it was all 4, but it is 1 full portable. I don't know if you have any questions.
You have any questions for him? And we'll have one more who's going to talk here in just a second.
No questions, just thanks. I mean, are you done yet? We want to
No,
thank
we have
you.
another one that's, we have someone else. You can come and talk and then we'll
Okay, come
we'll
on.
say a whole bunch of stuff. So don't go and run away.
Okay.
I don't have too much to say besides thank you for letting me be involved in this. And yeah,
Thank you.
He's doing a lot.
it's a good partnership.
Yes,
Awesome.
good.
That's awesome.
And we were joined by several other members of our team for leadership, so I do want to acknowledge them for making the trip out here tonight. So if you do participate in Leadership Sandoval, if you could please stand up to be recognized.
Right.
Because what they don't know is they'll be out there helping us paint and do some things on a weekend real quick. But and that's in addition to our other group projects that we've devoted our time to, after hours, weekends, things like that. So I'll stand for questions.
Yeah. Dr. Cleveland, do you want to add anything?
I just add my thanks to you. This is a wonderful project, and we are really appreciative of it. And I can just tell you, you might want to think about what it's like to start teaching on July 30th in a portable classroom that isn't very cool. And so a very miserable experience. And so this is just very generous and very we're just very excited about it. So thank all of you for considering the school district and to help with this particular project. So very grateful. Thanks.
Gary Tripp, do you want to add anything?
Just want to say thank you. And as I look at this list of everything that is being donated, it looks like a lot of money, and it looks like a lot of labor and actually a lot of love for kids. And I just want to say thank you. Can't believe a 20-year lifetime craftsmanship warranty and everything else. But thank you on behalf. Those kids will truly enjoy thank you.
Jeff, go ahead.
I just want to say thanks to all of you. This means a lot. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Jessica?
I just love the way that Leadership Sandoval came in to really strengthen our whole community. And I think it's a great partnership. And so thank you for participating in it. I know it's a commitment to participate in a program that's that long, but it does bring a lot of value, networking, but also being able to participate in projects like this is, to me, truly what it should be about. So excellent job on bringing everything all together. And thank you for doing this for our students.
Don't really know that I can add anything to all of that, but just thank you so much. I participated in that program many years ago when I first moved to Rio Rancho, and it was very important to me when I was starting with the university here. So I appreciate what the program does, and this project will be so helpful to our students. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to add a thank you. It was fun to hang out with so many of you up in Santa Fe. Dr. Cleveland and I were just talking about how tired we were after that. Yeah, on that Friday. But thank you so much. I think this, Leadership Sandoval, it really shows what can happen when, having these sort of programs to really bring people together, and that's what we need more of in Rio Rancho. I think sometimes I grew up here and I see that we're drifting a little bit more Albuquerque, and that makes me concerned. And so things like this, where we get together and we do things for kids, and like Gary said, I kind of look at the amount of money really all these things are worth, and the time that these things are worth. And so thank you so much. Thanks for the donation. Thanks for the work. Thanks for all those who, I kind of want to do this Leadership Sandoval now, but I can't even think of the time. I don't know if I have the time for that when I hear all the things you are doing. So thank you. Thank you everyone for all of the things that you're doing. We appreciate it.
I'd like to say one more thing too. We thank TLC. We've had a long relationship in this district with TLC. And I think it goes way back with Mr. Armstrong's strong desire to contribute to the community. And so I want to acknowledge this isn't just a one-time thing. Over the years, TLC has helped in a lot of ways. So if you would please convey that to the folks in your company. And we look forward to working with Win Airs as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next report will be our arts integration and Montessori crosswalk. So Janice Chenault, our elementary school improvement officer, will present along with Dr. Kurt Schmidt, our executive director of fine arts.
Good evening, Madam President, school board members, and Dr. Cleveland. We are here to, and I think Dr. Cleveland said it really well, connect the two programs of arts integration and the Montessori at Sandia Vista. Go for it. You can keep going, Claudia. So we wanted to remind the board what the definition is for arts integration according to the Kennedy Center. Arts integration is an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through an art form. Students engage in a creative process which connects an art form and another subject area and meets evolving objectives in both. And so the question is, why arts integration? It offers a different way to approach content, fosters student-teacher creativity, gets students moving, which is huge right now for our students, provides alternative ways for assessment, and engages students who may struggle with the written work while laying the groundwork for them to improve in reading and writing. And we do have a guest with us this evening, so if you do have questions about this, we have Mr. Sean Lane, who wrote the book Acting Right, that we will be implementing at Sandia Vista, which is a behavior program around the arts. And so he'll be here to answer any questions if you have questions about what this might look like together. So looking at the information that we were given with the different articles from that Montessori lens, there really were 5 themes that came out. Of course, there's more, but these are the big ones. Interdisciplinary learning, to make connections between different subjects of learning, and arts integration in the curriculum in all content areas. And it's different ways for students to express their learning besides pen and paper. It allows that creativity that both Montessori and arts integration encourage students to have, and to explore the inner world through art. Students can develop artistic habits of mind that can be applied across academic disciplines. Holistic development supports the whole child, including their intellectual, emotional, social, and physical skills. Self-expression, which is extremely important, provides opportunities for students to express themselves. In Montessori, students can express their inner world through art, and in arts integration, students can use art to express their understanding of a topic. And then, of course, collaboration. Both of them stress the collaborative nature of learning. Some aspects of integrated arts and fine arts education in general complement Montessori principles. Respect for the child, educating the whole child, individualized learning, freedom of movement and choice. And you'll see some of that when we talk about tableaus. Intrinsic motivation, independence and interdependence. And then we shared some articles around how a lot of Montessori schools are using art or arts integration to enhance the learning of their students. In a PhD study, this was a very important paragraph that came through this study, and the study was the benefits and barriers to arts integration and arts accessibility in public Montessori. And the conclusion was to identify Montessori teachers' perceptions of how their professional knowledge, experiences, and resources affect their ability to integrate art into their general classroom curriculum. Major findings on the benefits of arts integration in public elementary schools and the barriers teachers report that prevent them from feeling confident implementing the art lessons in their classrooms. So the goal really was to get them more professional development around the arts so they could implement that more into their Montessori. And arts integration promotes the uniqueness and strengths of all students focused with Montessori philosophy. This was another, it's kind of hard to see the language, but this was another article, and this quote is from Marie Montessori. Our aim is not merely to make the child understand, and still less to force him to memorize, but so to touch his imagination as to enthuse him in his innermost core. While arts education has long been a priority at this school, arts integration, an approach to teaching that integrates visual and performing arts to enhance students' learning and understanding, became a key part of our school's strategic plan in 2014. Another article spoke to where they are not seen as separate subjects, but as integral parts of a child's overall development. Montessori's approach to artistic expression is deeply rooted in the philosophy that every child is inherently creative and capable of self-expression, and they can develop their own unique artistic style and fosters a sense of confidence in their creative abilities. The current Montessori enrollment, we just wanted to update you on where we are. The pre-K program has 6 students. Our goal in Rio Rancho, and currently they pay for that to go to the pre-K Montessori, and we want our pre-K to be free to all children. And so we're hoping to incorporate that into Shining Stars and as we expand. And then these are the current numbers in the classroom. There are 2 kinder first grade classrooms, a second and a third, so they're not multi-grade, and then 2 4-5 classrooms. One of the questions when we talked about Montessori in the past was out of district students that attend the Montessori program. So we wanted you to know that currently we have 5 students, 28 students that are Rio Rancho students somewhere else in the district, and 76 of the current students are Sandia Vista students, emphasizing that all students who are at Sandia Vista will be welcome to stay at Sandia Vista. And so the recommendation that we'll be making later is to implement arts integration for all K-5 students at Sandia Vista and Enchanted Hills Elementary School, to sunset Montessori K-5 after this school year, including the pre-K, but keep the students in their current grade level cohort. If parents want that, they've asked for that, unless they otherwise request, and to make sure that current Montessori students remain at Sandia Vista. And so we have Sean Lane here, if anybody has questions for him. And Dr. Schmidt wants to talk to you.
Sean Lane happens to be in town to work with Sandia Vista and Enchanted Hills, and so we invited him to come tonight since this was a topic on the agenda. So he's got a few comments if you'd like to tell you and answer any questions you might have for arts integration in general. So,
Thank you.
I should. Yep. I should introduce him a little bit. So Sean, you're a founding member of Focus 5, right? Yeah, Focus 5 is an organization he helped found. It's an arts integration professional development consulting agency. Many teaching artists, they work all around the country. I rarely call Sean and he's not in an airport or someplace at a school around the United States. But he's part of this organization, and we are partnering with them, specifically Sean and his behavior program, Acting Right. So he's worked with, as he'll say, he's worked with some Montessori schools and numerous schools on arts integrations.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you.
Exciting night to be here. As the author of the definition of arts integration for the Kennedy Center, I'm just humbled all the time to see where, when, and why it's popping up and the impact it's having nationally and internationally. So if you have questions about arts integration, I certainly am the one to ask. And I would say in a seemingly polarizing time when it's this or that, or either or, this seems to be an exciting decision in my perspective, in that I don't see that we're replacing Montessori. I see it as an expansion from a small group of teachers to all the teachers in these schools, an expansion from a small group of students to all of the students in the school. So I would encourage you to just think of expansion. And I would also say, as the field of education is looking at artificial intelligence right in the face, what we know is that we are going to have to empower our students to collaborate and creatively problem solve and have empathy and be able to connect to other people, which are all of the components that artificial intelligence is incapable of and the arts is so capable of doing. So I hope that helps you with the decision that you are faced with.
Oh, thank you. I have to tell you, Sean, so I was up when we were up in Colorado, I was up there with our district, and I was so impressed by some of the things that I teach high school students. And so I actually tried it in my high school classes. Like I even put the music on and we did it up, and then we looked at art pieces and it was fun. It was something that was really good. And I have to say too, for Sean, that he really held us accountable when we were adults and we were doing it. And, as we talk about those things and you get out of your comfort zone, and there's something about it that it becomes less scary. I think when you first start, you're like, can I be like this with everyone? And just the whole program, I'm just so impressed by how it does. You become a collaboration of people, and it becomes less and less scary. And that's what one of the students said to us as well when we were there. He said, so was it scary to be so close to people and to be touching? He's like, well, at first, and I guess he was kind of one of the a little bit harder kids, a little rambunctious. He's like, at first it was hard, but he's like, but now I really like it. I really like, and so I just think it's such a great program. And so thank you for being here. I'm guessing you did a training over at the schools today. Is that? Okay. Okay. So thank you so much for coming out. So anyone from the board, Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything? And we can see if anyone has questions for.
Just a couple of things for those of us who went and want everybody in the audience to kind of know what transpired. We have visited schools that were integrated art schools. We took a team. The team had board members, that had staff members, that had parents. And so after several visits, we felt really positive about the direction that we wanted to go in these two elementary schools to see how it would work for us. I did have the opportunity to visit Mr. Lane's class, and I've visited a lot of classes over a long, long period of time, but I can tell you the engagement was 100% in that classroom, 100%. You rarely ever see that. And so that was just so impressive. And the ability for students to regulate their behavior and to get ready to learn. And that's something that looks like we're going to have to do more of, is teaching children how to get ready to learn. And so it was a really wonderful experience. I think we all benefited a lot. And then I would also want everyone here to know that Dr. Schmidt and I visited each of the two elementary schools one time to visit with the staff and to hear their concerns and their questions. And I thought they had very good questions. I didn't sense a lot of, and the principal can certainly address that far better than I can, but people were curious. Some were a little apprehensive. Change is hard, but we didn't sense any real opposition, and people seemed pretty open to looking for things that are better, because our kids have changed and our world has changed. We're going to have to change how we work with kids in order to be successful with them. And so we visited first with parents at each site, and then and then with staff. So we got feedback from both of those groups at the school-based meetings. We had a very good turnout for both meetings, and parents seemed very positive that we talked to. I didn't hear hardly any opposition at all from parents. A lot of questions. Questions are good because it helps us think through some of the things that we're going to have to consider But it was those meetings I thought were very productive. So we've talked to staff, we've talked to parents, we've visited sites, we've seen it in action. And so this has been a thoughtful process to get to this point this evening. One other thing, kind of completely different, but certainly want to, we were looking for something better. We're always looking for something better. And we felt like this was an approach that would be very positive. We also were struggling with our Montessori program as we can't find teachers. And even the Montessori programs themselves are telling me they can't find teachers. Just a real shortage of individuals who have that training. So this is a way, we talked about really, you did a great job on what the crosswalk is, the strong crosswalk. And I think many of the things that parents look for and want in the Montessori program, they will find in this program. And we think it's just, and the whole school will move together. We have 2 schools working together so that there's a partnership and support between 2 buildings, not just one. So that's just a little bit of the background, but I kind of wanted you to know all the bases that we had covered before coming here this evening.
Thank you. Gary Tripp, do you have any questions for anyone who's up there? We'll vote on this in a little bit down the road. But.
I have 2 questions, but one is very confusing that I need to know, and maybe Jenna can help me, maybe not. But right currently with the Montessori program, and since I live in the Sandia Vista neighborhood, are there kids that don't get to ride the bus for free or pre-K? So.
Yeah. Board member Tripp, that's correct. They pay for their pre-K and they don't get busing. Parents have to bring them, and it's a half day.
And this would, if the whole school is integrated arts, and the kids in that neighborhood of Sandia Vista, would they be allowed to be on the bus for free?
K-5 students?
Pre-K.
We were looking at recommending sunsetting the pre-K too. We only have 6 students right now, so it really doesn't cover the cost of the teacher.
Got it. Okay. I just didn't know that about, for the kids' sake. Yeah. And then I really appreciate the inclusivity and the acceptance of integrated arts. So what I would ask the principal in the future is, not only are we reporting back on the proficiency rates, but maybe we could report back on the discipline behavior of students, because maybe it would demonstrate that we are becoming more inclusive to everyone and more accepting to everyone that we're connected with. Thank you.
Board member Tripp, that is part of the arts integration rollout that we will be surveying or doing comparative data from the past and throughout this process of arts integration, especially with Acting Right, just to look at that, plus academic achievement, et cetera. So that's on our radar. So, but thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, thank you. Jeff, do you have any questions, comments?
No questions. Thanks for the information. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth Miller?
Well, it was a pleasure when we went to Denver for me to be able to observe these things. I want to thank you for your commitment to children in this arts integration. And I'm glad the district is moving forward with this. I saw a lot of benefit to it. I look forward to hearing how you're doing in the future. Thank you so much.
Jessica Tyler?
Yeah, so my question, because I think it would be a question from the community, I think Dr. Cleveland, you answered some of it, but as to why not keep both, right? They're so closely related. The crosswalk complements each other so well. Why not still keep Montessori? It sounds like, I know we've had issues finding people who are certified in Montessori, but I think that there's going to be some questions from parents thinking, well, the name Montessori, that kind of stamp of approval, it's something that people know that they're comfortable with. There might be some hesitancy to say, like, are we going to get the same quality out of the programming with integrated arts alone? And so I think that might be a question from the community. And then further, what will happen with those pre-Kers? We've been looking at expanding pre-K. If we sunset the Montessori, will they be absorbed into normal pre-K? I know these parents choose and they pay for this program. Will they have spots in our other pre-K programs if they choose, or how will that be handled?
Thank you for the questions, Board Member Tyler. I would say to your first question, we call it Montessori. It's not Montessori. So we aren't being very true to the program. We say that, but we have our ELA curriculum is the same curriculum that every student uses in the district. And then math is a little bit different. They used to have 2.5 hours of work time. I think it's down to an hour now. So I think we're calling it that, but we're not doing that. And so the benefit of having the school all do the same thing is I think we'll be saying exactly what we're doing and honest about that. Right now, we don't have multi-age in a couple of the grades, which is against Montessori. And a lot of the curriculum they're doing is what every other student is doing. So I think if we want to really do Montessori, we would have to do Montessori the way it's supposed to be done. We've watered it down quite a bit. And to your second question that I've already forgotten. Thank you. We could choose to keep that if we wanted to. The thought is it's free for every other child. So we definitely would want to open that up to other families if they want it. If we want to continue doing it until we get the expansion of pre-K, we can. There will be nowhere to go from that pre-K into another Montessori. So we were thinking they can't go into kinder Montessori after that, but we could certainly continue it. I know Kirk DeSoto has talked about keeping pre-K. If we want to do that, he's willing to keep pre-K. So that really could be a board decision if you want to do that or not. We just won't have a place for them to go if we don't continue Montessori. But they would be absorbed into the kindergarten arts integration.
Thank you. Could you elaborate just a little bit before and then let Principal Soto speak, but why we're not doing it exactly at Montessori and what was the factors that made us make that change? And we were very open with parents that we were not going to be able to do pure Montessori. Do you want to kind of give just a little history about the why on that?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Cleveland, for the question. Lots of reasons, starting back when we looked at test scores 7-8 years ago, we found that the way Montessori was delivering instruction, our kids were not performing at a higher level, or in some cases, they were performing at a lower level according to state testing and WA. So there was this work to kind of align, and that caused us to change what they were doing for their curriculum, which is why we went to our ELA curriculum. That's not how Montessori typically works. Montessori is more self-paced, students work at their levels. And so we weren't meeting everybody's needs grade level wise because kids were at such different places. As the program has become more inclusive, we have more students now. I would say years back, there weren't a lot of students with disabilities that were allowed in the program. As we have over the last few years, we've really tried to make it more of an inclusive program, and that's been difficult because then students with special needs have been pulled out of that individual time. It's really a combination of teacher certification. We are having a difficult time with teachers with the background, so they don't even have Montessori trained teachers. We're doing the best we can. We added that instructional coach, and then she left us and went to a Montessori school, so that was a loss. We lost that professional development. We end up spending $3,000 to $5,000 for every new teacher just to get them the educational assistant training, so they have something when they go in. So it's training, it's the materials we're using, and it's the structure of the program that over time, and then our enrollment's about half. I can't say that's because of the program. That may be that parents, we've had this conversation several times and they decided not to do the Montessori, but that's really the history over it. It's changed over time.
I would add a couple of things to that as well. We mentioned earlier, we find it very hard to find certified Montessori teachers, period. There's just very few of them. I want to really say, though, publicly and really emphasize this, it's not a criticism of those teachers at all. They've worked very hard to make the program work. They're very, very dedicated. We've had some of them asked to go back to a traditional classroom, and I think that the reason for it is it's a double lift. They felt like they were doing 2 jobs instead of 1, and the hours are just not there to do a double, and they felt like they weren't doing either one of them at the level they wanted to do. But I just really want to say this is not any kind of a criticism of the work that they have done, how hard they have worked. And it just seems like that right now we can't deliver the program that we think that a true Montessori program would have. So I really wanted to emphasize that point. But I'm going to teach you, it's just so hard to do 2 things and not feel like you're doing anything at the level that you really want to.
Thank you for saying that, Dr. Cleveland, because you reminded me after No Child Left Behind came out, it was very difficult for the teachers because if you're multi-age, you have to teach all that grade level content to each student. So they were trying to figure out, some of the teachers would teach third grade math to second and third graders and third grade ELA. And then the next year teach second, it was really, kids were not getting all of the grade level material. And it was really hard for the teachers to teach multi grades. And that all changed when No Child Left Behind. I think that's the same time we closed down the family school because it was just too difficult to meet all of that.
One of the requests we've had from the parents is to see if we can try to keep some of those kids together. And so I'll let Principal DeSoto address that as well as the other things that he might want to share.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board. Secretary Tyler, just a couple of answers to your questions. The current preschool students are 4 years old. They will naturally go into our kindergarten program. Mrs. Chenault is correct. I have requested that we be included in the pre-K grant in some form or fashion in the future, and that's something that I will keep advocating for in the future because I truly believe in early childhood education, especially in our neighborhood school. And to your point, Board Member Tripp, we do have the capacity to have more students in the 4-year-old program, if possible, because we do have a waiting list usually. But when parents found out that it's an astronomical fee for their children to attend the preschool program, that's when they dropped and said, I'm either going to somewhere else or I'm going to Shining Stars and I'm going to make other choices for our family. And we understand that as well. One of the points that Mrs. Chenault also made was the certification. And I know that we've spoken about this a couple of times, but right now we have 2 trained Montessori teachers in the program. One is a traditional teacher who is trained through the district, as Mrs. Chenault said, an online program, and then one teacher who's currently on leave for personal reasons, is a true Montessori trained teacher that came to us. And so what that looks like, and it was hard for me to wrap my mind around because I wasn't under the current system as a teacher, is that they have to have Montessori training, but then they also have to have a degree. They have to be able to be licensed within the state of New Mexico. That's always, most often, a very sticky situation for a Montessori trained teacher because they're not able to be licensed. And so you have to get them through that process and probably an alternative license. And then they have letters. So that's something that I truly believe should be a college course. And it's starting to be, but it's almost a college course that all of our teachers in primary are going through, as you all know. And then on top of that, if they're a first or second year teacher, they have to go through micro-credentialing. And HR has addressed that multiple times in front of the board about micro-credentialing. It's tough to get through as well. And so to put that all on someone that's a new teacher in a new program, I try to be very honest with people that I'm hiring as well to say, these are the things that you are looking at and you need to be aware of these requirements and the stipulations from the district and of the program as well. But this summer I did mention to you guys as well that, like Dr. Cleveland also said, I truly feel uncomfortable saying that it's a Montessori program when it's not. When we are delivering the best education that we possibly can. But as Mrs. Chenault said, it's very comparable to our traditional side of Sandia Vista as well.
Yeah. Jessica, you had mentioned something about feedback from the parents. What was your question you had asked about how the parents feel again?
Oh, I was saying, I think that questions from parents of children who are in the Montessori program would ask, why not do both when they're so closely aligned, the philosophies, when they showed the crosswalk, there's a lot of similarities in the benefits to the children through the Montessori program and arts integration. So we're being asked to consider sunsetting the Montessori program. I was saying that I would think that the parents of children that are in the Montessori program would ask, why sunset it? If they're so closely aligned, why not keep both?
And so we don't have the teachers.
Yeah.
And we don't have, our teachers tell us very difficult to do both programs, and they have to do both programs in order to do well on the state assessments.
Gary Tripp?
I would just say that living in the neighborhood where these kids are Montessori, when Montessori started in the district back around 2013, when I moved into my neighborhood, there was true kids of a true Montessori program, and there were true Montessori teachers recruited at Sandia Vista. And those kids, for the most part in our neighborhoods, they're at Cleveland High School now. And so the parents now, they don't see it as a true Montessori. The ones that are going in now, they don't see it as a true Montessori. Some of them do, and they hang on to it, but the numbers dwindle every year. The kids that really did gel through Montessori, there are high school students now, or they're graduated.
Yeah. What's interesting to me, just in what, like 5 minutes, we're going to be voting on this here in a second, but is this, I think, is the third time that we've taken a look at Montessori and what we should do with the program. And it hasn't gotten better, right? It just, every time we look at it, it gets worse. But what's been interesting is that I haven't had any emails. And so the 2 times previous to this, I received the first time an extreme amount of emails. We had a lot of public comment. Last time I received a little bit. And then as we've been working with the parents more, I haven't received not one right on these issues. I did talk to a parent this last week just about it. And I couldn't say enough about arts integration as we spoke. But I think that also, that kind of speaks volumes, I guess, in and of itself, that I haven't heard anything from the community recently on this, and usually it's a big deal when we see it. So to me, that shows that we've at least done a good job at really talking about what we're looking at and explaining, where we're hoping to head. So, any other questions from the board or comments, Dr. Cleveland?
I would just emphasize one additional thing. We did have parent night, and we went out and we sat, and it was well attended.
Yes. How many parents? I was just getting ready to ask.
Right. But I just want you to know we did go and talk to parents. We felt that was something the board really expected of us and wanted us to do. And we had good questions, but we did not sense any really strong opposition the evening that we spoke. And we had good turnout at both schools on those parent nights. So I think parents were very much aware. I give a lot of the credit of that to the principals, who I think have had more opportunity than we had to talk with parents about what it would look like. And again, I think our parents are fairly sophisticated about looking at what the integrated arts offers, and it has many of the things they were looking for their children.
Yeah, and it was good because when we did go up to Colorado, we had parents with us who were there. And so I think that actually was it was huge what we did with that, because those parents now have been able to go and talk with other parents. And I think that's what's probably helped as well, to educate our families on what we're looking at. And some of those parents at the beginning were very timid about it. And then after actually participating in this program with us, there really was a big change. And many of you had the opportunity to listen to them when we had our board workshop a while back. So. Any other questions?
To your point, we didn't take all the rah-rah parents. We took some of the parents who had really serious concerns about it, and I think that was very good, because they asked the hard questions other parents would be asking as well. But I wish we had the opportunity to do more in that area. We're very limited by resources. We're really limited by staff and finding people that are qualified to teach in the program.
Yeah. And on the Montessori, I have one of my nieces works with the Montessori, and they're having a hard time even getting Montessori teachers in the Montessori programs, these private schools. And so I don't know, it's something that maybe we're just changing, right? And that's okay for education to change. So if there's no other question, any other questions? Okay.
Can I ask one more thing? Dr. Schmidt wants to ask something, but you might want to address too the reverse of it, because some of the Montessori teachers ask us, how will that work out for us? And you had a really good response on how you would support them as they transition into the traditional school. And some of them already had experience in that area. But I thought your response to those teachers was a really good one. You had really thought through how we would support them too.
So we have a couple of teachers that requested last year to move to the traditional program, and they did successfully this year. there are a few that have said we're going to have retirements this year, so it's natural. They already kind of know who's retiring, and they're like, I really want to go to this grade level or that grade level. But what I told the two teachers that are actually teaching Montessori that are at the school, I said, they're best practices for everyone. They're good practices for all kids. And so you can take all of the money that has been spent on manipulatives and things that are at the school and housed at the school. It's still there, and we can all use that. So we'll still have the capacity to house all of our teachers next year. And just, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I was in a third grade classroom this week, and she was doing a fraction lesson. She had traditional fraction units from our traditional program that we use. She had Montessori fraction units from the Montessori program, and she was making comparisons between both of them, and she did a really good job. Hopefully she's watching, but she did a really good job doing that. And the kids were like, oh, that's what that is. I'm like, yes, she was successful at that and was using just different types of teaching methods, and she did a really good job with that.
I wanted to, I know President Galbraith, Board Member Miller, and Dr. Cleveland were up in Colorado with us, but if the rest of you want to stop in this week to watch Sean work with the students of these schools at any point, just contact me and we can find a good slot for you if you wish to come by and watch that.
And participate and have fun.
Participate.
And be a part of it. Okay, yeah. All right, if there's no other questions, then we're good. Thank you so much, we appreciate it. Okay. For this evening, so I'm going to triple check, JC, we have no in-person public comment. Okay. So we have one public comment that came in through our online form. And that is from Alec Reinhardt, and I'll just summarize. It's asking about special education teachers getting the phase 2 retention stipends that are listed under the NMPED website. And so that is the only public comment that we received online and nothing in person, but we welcome our public, those who are listening, to come in and give public comment if there's something you would like to talk about that in regards to our schools. Our next is the consent agenda. We'll go to approve the consent.
Madam President, this is Board Member Tyler. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Here we are. Huh?
Okay, and I told you it was a couple of moments until we got there. So we'll go ahead and invite Janice Chenault back up, our elementary school improvement officer. She got a break for a moment to consider sunsetting the Montessori program.
So good evening, President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. We are making the recommendation to combine the Montessori program and the arts integration program for next school year at Sandia Vista. The other recommendation for the board to consider is whether or not you want to continue the pre-K paid program at Sandia Vista.
Okay. Do we want to do both of those now, the pre-K, or are we looking at the pre-K later? Or are we looking at the pre-K right now?
I think they're all together, Madam President.
Okay. Is that correct? It's not on the agenda, so I think we're going to have to take them separate, right? I'm just looking at.
That's right.
Okay. Okay. So we'll have to do that next meeting.
Montessori's pre-K to 5.
I mean, I think we could do it together unless
Okay.
we wanted to separate it. We just need to.
Montessori's pre-K 5.
Okay. We just look to Lauren Hatch for all things.
I do too.
Okay.
Again, I just got one question though. I don't know if
Do we have to have the grade levels on here?
I think we're okay. Okay.
Yeah, the only pre-K students are Montessori students. There are no other pre-K students.
Okay. Jeff, go ahead.
So is it a Montessori program or not?
It's called, they call it Montessori. They just call it a Montessori program, yes.
But that's not what it is though.
If you were to compare a board member, sorry, Morgan, if you were to compare a Montessori school or a Montessori program that wasn't at Sandia Vista with all of the components of the Montessori program, it would not be a complete Montessori program. We have said for the past couple years that we've had best practices in Montessori. That was the best way that we could describe it.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a level of integrity that's my concern. I would just prefer we call it what it is at the end of the day, so that way we don't feel like we're misleading anybody. It's tough for me to vote on something that's really not
Jeff,
what it is.
So what we're looking at is getting rid of that completely. So then we're not going to have that label anymore because that label. So what we're looking at is not having Montessori, and we're going to have arts integration.
Right. Okay, so it's going to be called arts integration, then, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It'll be just Sandia Vista, and there'll be an arts integration school.
Yeah. So it's that program that we're looking at change because of where it's at. Exactly with what you're saying, Jeff. Exactly with what you're saying, because it's not what it is, and we're calling it something that it isn't. So is changing and looking for
kind of merging two programs, but it's not.
Yeah, does that help?
We're keeping some of the best practices of Montessori because that's already in integrated arts.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read the articles and the research that was provided to the board, I think you saw that from the Montessori side, because at least half the articles came from Montessori rather than from integrated arts. And they talked about how they do integrate. So keeping some of the best practices, because they're good practices for kids. In terms of the integrity piece, I want to be absolutely sure that everybody knows that we came to the board and we explained very clearly that it would be an integrated program that would have some Montessori, but would also meet the requirements that we have to meet for the state of New Mexico assessment. We also told the parents that. Parents were very specifically informed, this is not pure Montessori. Here are the test scores. We've got to be sure that your children are meeting those state standards and benchmarks, because as a public school, we're required by statute to do that. So the parents were informed and knew that. But we also brought that to the Board of Education and said, this is going to be kind of a hybrid experience. We're not losing all of that. And I guess that's what I'd really like to really emphasize. In the articles, it talked about how arts integration is one of the primary focuses of Montessori. And those practices will still continue to be used in the integrated arts, but it also has some other components as well. So it's I just want to assure you the parents were aware that it was integrated all along. And we made that very clear, I hope, to the board as well, that we could not manage to do both. What the teachers are telling us, what they told me in a couple of instances, is it's killing us to do both. You either need to do one or the other. But we went out and deliberately looked for some kind of approach to teaching and learning that incorporated many of those things that Montessori parents wanted and were looking for. And we found those in integrated arts. We saw that in that program. So I think parents are going, and some of the parents that went with us were really, I think, very pleased to see a lot of the things that they were looking for, like movement and creativity. And some of those things were part of both programs. And so that's what we're saying. We think we can save many of those best practices through the integrated arts. But to your point, you make a really good point. Don't want to call it Montessori because it's not pure Montessori. We're moving, we're moving toward an integrated arts model, and that's what we're asking the board to approve.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Gary Tripp has a comment.
Just a comment now that I think I really understand Board Member Morgan's point. And that is just living there in that neighborhood. And I know the parents have heard over the years, I know they've heard from Principal DeSoto what the Montessori program looks like. And I know they heard it from Miranda Chantet, the previous principal. And I actually know they heard it from Pat DeVosto, the principal before Miranda. So just living in that neighborhood, I think it's a real valid point to say, integrity-wise, did the parents know? And I think now that I understand the position, I do think the community of that Sandia Vista neighborhood, where those 70-some kids and the kids before them, they knew what kind of a curriculum they were dealing with over the last few years. So just want to make that clear, that point. Yeah.
Any other questions from the board on this? Or Jana, do you have anything else that you want to share, or Dr. Cleveland?
We did, and I don't want to overstate this, but certainly one of the questions we were asked in our meetings at the school site was student achievement. And that's what kind of got me looking for sources of information, studies that look to, okay, you know, how does this all affect student achievement? And we found some pretty good examples of it moves student performance. One of the other things I think that was we found very clearly in looking at those studies and in those articles was it increased the joy of learning. And kids liked school more because they included things that allowed them to be more engaged in their own learning. So we haven't talked a lot about that, but certainly that was one of the questions that parents asked is, what about student achievement? And I think we found things to support it. The schools we visited were moving from having some real challenges to, but they were seeing improvement in the teaching and learning both in those schools.
And so real quick, so a point of clarity. So when we talk about sunsetting the Montessori program, a part of that will be sunsetting that pre-K program, right?
That's correct, Madam President.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we all have that. And then, but we are still looking at inserting them into that pre-K grant is what was, or we'll see.
Not the pre-K grant this year, but
Okay.
as we expand
Okay.
the following year, yes.
Okay. Okay. So I just want to make sure we're all clear on that. So we will consider a motion.
Board Member Tyler, I'll make a motion to sunset the Montessori program.
Board Member Gary Tripp, I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Gary Tripp. And let's do a roll call vote on this one, please, JC.
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Tyler,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Miller,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. All right. We have, she's just going to hang out with us for a long time. So we're going to consider the approval to look at a science magnet school at Rio Rancho Elementary. And once again, Jana Chenault.
Thank you, Board Member Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. So we're going to switch to science. And so we're going to take you through it. What we're asking for tonight is just permission to have the community and the school district come together and explore the possibility of a science magnet or science school, science-based school in Rio Rancho. Right now, we're talking about Rio Rancho Elementary as the possible site for several reasons. The current enrollment at Rio Rancho Elementary is 481. The capacity for the school is at least, it was built for 600. I'm not sure if that includes portables. Patrick would have to tell me that. But as you can see from the trajectory, we have a lower kinder and first grade enrollment than we do second through fifth. So we are not seeing as many young students in that neighborhood. And the idea is, how could we draw more students into Rio Rancho Elementary and keep the fact that this is a special school in our district, the first one built in the district, and could we do something new and unique with Rio Rancho Elementary? So the point or the purpose is to increase student choice and spotlight Rio Rancho as an innovative, forward-thinking district. We've identified that Rio Rancho Elementary could be this site. We would like to have a community committee establish a coalition of community members to explore this option, which would include, but not limited to, and I know Dr. Cleveland's had several conversations with people in the district, but Intel, the chamber, the city. We have worked in the past with the Air Force Research Lab, and I know some of our schools still do. Former Rio Rancho students have expressed interest in the positions there and now to be on this committee, our business partners, and state and local and land and water bureaus. These are just a couple examples. These are not what we're proposing. But for example, we could look at a K-5 science magnet on that campus, keep it with kindergarten through fifth grade. We could change the way we do our related arts and do something as simple as that, where we would have a STEAM class, a technology class, engineering, art, and math. We could be creative and look at a 4-8 science magnet school with a focus on our mid-level students. We have seen some of our students who identify as gifted and some of our middle school students make the choice to go elsewhere for middle school. and a lot of them have had an interest in the science and math field. So another possible suggestion could be looking at a fourth grade through 8th grade population. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have access to some UFO documents in our district, thanks to Mr. Baker. So there's an opportunity for primary source research and investigation. We've had people express interest to build a planetarium on the campus with all the space that is there. With partnerships, we could have some top-of-the-line science labs that kids could use for their investigations. And then again, that opportunity for genuine research and have the time built in for that. The impact we know when kids have opportunities to delve into science, it improves their mathematical thinking, their written responses, critical thinking. They have more geographical awareness, especially if you're talking about things like the solar system or geology. Their oral presentation skills change as they're collaborating and presenting their findings, and it enhances all academic content. We want our students to have an increased interest in science professions, and that will build our local workforce and give back to our community. How are we going to pay for it? So there we have a bond coming up. If the board decides after we've presented some of the community information, maybe that's something that goes on the bond. We really want to build community partnerships. There are a lot of free resources out there. There are grants that we can look at. Larry Davis has helped us quite a bit with our STEAM labs. And then we want to see if we can get any donated equipment from around the city. I know at some of the schools that have automotive or other labs in their schools, they've had companies that have given them their materials when they've bought new materials. So there's other ways we could look at with our community partners. So the request tonight is just to move forward with a community committee, no decisions, for the next school year to explore a science-based school model at Rio Rancho Elementary. The committee will spend the next 25-26 school year exploring magnet options, building community partnerships, developing a curricular focus, evaluating cost, and designing the physical, well, maybe the physical campus, we'll see. And with that, I stand for any questions.
And we'll go to the ladies. Jessica Tyler, any questions? Beth Miller.
No questions, thank you.
Okay. And I'm always on this side, so it's just the way my head looks.
We don't have any topics, no questions.
Do you guys have any? Nothing? Gary has a question. Go ahead, Gary.
Oh, boy.
You're not going to make it that easy.
I'm not going to.
Are you?
I just have comments about, because I don't know who's going to throughout the 25-26 school year, but my comments are, what is the size or the goal of an elementary school? And then what I worry about is if it's not I would love to see a magnet school, because what I worry about is when I looked at the numbers from kindergarten, first, second, third, and fourth, if it was just an average of 60, that's 360 kids that would be leaving that neighborhood to go to another school. And we kind of went through that. So a K-5 school, science magnet school makes a lot of sense, but what would be the goal? Is to attract 100 more kids or something like that. So maybe just as we get into the committee, what are some of the overall goals that we're looking to accomplish to keep our elementary kind of intact as far as size? But I do think a K-5 magnet school, I think there would be a handful of parents with quality interest in it. So just a couple of thoughts as we probably move forward on it.
Thank you, Board Member Tripp. We haven't even started, and all of us have been asking questions. To your point, a couple of things we've tossed around is keeping a core of that community and then opening it up for transfers. We just learned today that if you make it a magnet, then you have no boundaries, so you can't count any transportation. So we would lose transportation funding for the kids that live in that neighborhood. Jeffrey's writing this down. That's something to consider, but we just learned that today. So as we go through this process, our goal would be, I think we need to decide if the current facility is going to be sufficient or if there's going to be any renovation, and then how many students we could have with that renovation. At least I would say, 600 is what the current school can take, but I think the vision would be, I guess, whatever we could fit in there and do with a reasonable amount.
Yep.
A lot of, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
But you could teach every subject through STEM.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Dr. Kalu wants to add something.
Well, I think just a couple of things. What we want is to give this to a community committee and let them look at all of the options. We don't even really want to constrain them by this is what you got to do, because we've got really capable staff and we've got a wonderful community. And what we really want is for them to come together and try to think about what's the very best thing for the school site, and how do we better utilize the site. That site once had over 800 children in it, so it's about 50% below the capacity, and yet that building is a very old building and it needs a lot of work regardless. And it's the building is 20 years older than the school district. So it was the first public school building built in the community of Rio Rancho, and it started as a few portables up in Corrales Heights, and then became a full-fledged elementary over time. But the building is 50 plus years old. We had a 50th anniversary, and one of the things that really amazed me is how many people in Rio Rancho went to school there. If they are the original folks who came to Rio Rancho, almost everybody went to school there. And then they built Puesta and it kind of divided. But we have so many people in this community that are graduates of that elementary school, and they hope to see that school continue to be a viable campus. Over the years, we've also had teachers from all of the buildings ask for a science center in this district. And so another way of looking at that site might also be for all of the elementaries to access it. For example, one of the hopes I would love to see is a planetarium put there that all of the elementaries could access and use at that site. The site also is a pretty good sized site. There's quite a bit of land on that site. So, you have opportunities to do some different things there, but it's, it could be a site where others come to that site to access services as well. But the general model is a core and then bringing additional students in. I spoke with Kim Vesley about, as they start this boundary process, would this be an impediment, or would how would this work in terms of boundaries? And she actually said it could be a real plus to go with that, because you're going to have a hard time moving other neighborhoods into that school. And so, and then I think the other piece is, today we live in a world of choice. And if we don't provide choice to our parents, they find it somewhere else. So looking to provide our parents in this community with more choices about the programs that we offer, at least at some of our schools, seems to me to be a smart way to ensure that we don't lose students out of the district. So but I hope we just we get a great committee together. I've already had a lot of folks say they would love to be part of it. We've already had someone step forward from the chamber who'd love to be a co-chair. And let's just see where they take it, where the community takes it, because it's their school, and see what they think might be a good use for the building. But I really want to underscore, I think there's real strong support that school be utilized. And I think there's a really strong feeling that we need to do a lot of work at that site regardless. And so maybe we just think differently about what that site will look like when we go through that process.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Oh, we good.
We'll consider a motion on this.
I can make a motion to approve looking into a science magnet school for Rio Rancho Elementary.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, a second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Jessica Tyler, second by Jeff Morgan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, our next is to consider the approval of donation from Leadership Sandoval County and TLC Plumbing. Once again, Dr. Chris Johnson, our Rio Tech principal, will present. Thanks everyone for hanging out. So we appreciate everyone being here. Go ahead.
All right, so I would ask the board to consider the approval of the donation from Leadership Sandoval County, TLC Plumbing, Albuquerque Winter, on behalf of Rio Rancho Public Schools and Ernest Stapleton Elementary. And I'll stand for questions.
This is board. Any questions? So we can. Board Member Jeff Morgan making a motion to approve the approval of donation from Leadership Sandoval County and TLC Plumbing. Thank you.
Or Tyler, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jeff Morgan and a second by Jessica Tyler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you all for
Appreciate
being here again. You want to say anything else? Okay. All right, our next is to consider the approval of the project Lead the Way grant. Larry Davis, our Director of Career Technical Education, will present.
Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board, it's an absolute honor to be here presenting to you this opportunity for our students. 4 years ago, we had Project Lead the Way at one comprehensive high school. I'm very proud to report to you that we have Project Lead the Way at both comprehensive high schools, and effective next year, we will have Project Lead the Way at all 4 middle schools in the district. So one of the reasons we've moved toward this is you may already know this fact that if a student in high school completes 2 or more courses within a pathway, national data, state data, and certainly our district data would prove that they become close to 100% graduation rate. And so we get them hooked on hands-on activities, and we walk into these classrooms and we see the light bulbs coming on and they're engaged. And Dr. Cleveland made a comment earlier about 100% engagement. And these classes is where math comes to life and where science comes to life. And we want to provide every opportunity for our students to be engaged. We've looked at that critically from a vertical perspective of where they can start it in middle school and then continue that in high school. So just solidifying their graduation rate. And I would be remiss if I didn't really ultimately give the credit to the people that are behind me. So we have Mrs. Arnold here, who is the school principal at Mountain View Middle School. And without the support of the principals and their knowledge of the good this does for their students and their willingness to work with their counseling team to build this into their master schedules, and ultimately we have nothing. So a very sincere thank you, Mrs. Arnold, for consideration of this. And I'm very pleased to announce that she will have Project Lead the Way Gateway Pathway, but she'll be offering 3 courses next year, 4 courses next year. And so that's going to be a big plus. And of course, those students feed directly to Cleveland High School, which we've established Project Lead the Way Computer Science. So also, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Shelly Kinnanen. Shelly is our CTE Pathway Coordinator. And I have to tell you, she's pursuing her administrative license this year. And Shelly came to me with this opportunity to write the grant. And she asked me if she could. And fairly, she wrote the grant on behalf of every one of our middle schools. But what we were ultimately awarded the $20,000 for Mountain View Middle School. So I want to recognize my team because I get to be up here and talk about it and smile about it. But the reality is that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here that are making things happen. So a very sincere thank you. Would you like to say anything?
Oh, yes. I would like to say thank you very much because this is something as a middle school administrators we have been really working on is how to offer more engaging in a variety of elective courses to our middle school students. And the work that we've done with the CTE department has really allowed us to do this. And we're really excited to be able to offer these classes to students. And we're also very thankful for the teachers who are willing to take their time to do the training to offer these classes to our students. So we're very excited about this opportunity and we think it's going to be really great for Mountain View.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Just to give you an idea what that looks like, teachers, if they're receiving the training during the school year, then they're devoting, I think it's from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock every evening for a couple of weeks to pursue this training and earn that certificate to teach. And then, of course, those that don't have the opportunity due to family reasons or whatever, then they are completing their courses during the summertime. So as she mentioned, just a great deal of thanks to the teachers who see the value of this and ultimately are driving the success for our students and making their classrooms a place where students want to be. So with that said, I respectfully request that you consider this $20,000 grant and that we are able to put it in use over the next 2 years.
Thank you.
We go?
Sure.
Board member, we good? Board member Jeff Morgan, I make a motion of the approval of the Project Lead the Way grant.
Board Member Miller, I second the motion.
We have a motion by Jeff Morgan, a second by Beth Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you for your hard work on this.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Dr. Cleveland, is there anything else you would like
No,
to
just,
say?
I just want to thank them for their hard work.
I do too.
I know.
Thank you for all
It'll
that
be
you're doing.
exciting to see where this goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I love to see that, we try to aim big, right? We were talking about with the grant with Shelley, right? Try to aim big. And it's just, we're grateful that we were able to get it at one of the schools. So that's a wonderful thing. So thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing. All right. Okay, our next, my notes are getting scary over here. So, okay. Our next is to consider the draft of the instructional calendar for the 25-26 school year. So Peggy Johnston, our Director of Human Services, will present.
Thank you so much, President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board. So our calendar committee has been hard at work again. The calendar committee is made up of representatives from each school and each department of the district. And that's a great way to combine our efforts and make sure that everyone has a chance to be heard. And they get to take that information back to their schools or departments within the district and ask questions and bring concerns to the committee. As we've seen in the past several years, what we're bringing to you tonight is simply a draft. We are waiting on the current legislative session to end and for, of course, the governor to then have time to consider anything that was presented during that session. This happens to be a long session, so we have a little bit longer wait. So we'll be back again. It might be easier, Claudia, if we go to the list of important dates. I know that calendar is a little hard to read up there on that screen, so maybe just looking at these dates will be a little bit easier. And I'll just go ahead and go through everything for the calendar, and then we'll stand for questions on this instructional calendar. And then next we'll have Dr. Christopher Johnson speak to you about the Rio Tech calendar because it will be slightly different from the instructional calendar. So we're looking at our first day for the staff, as I believe Dr. Cleveland mentioned earlier, that it would be July 30, potentially quite warm in some of those portables for sure. That would be 3 days of professional development for our instructional staff, and then students would all come on August 4. We've got some holidays in here. We've got professional development days, and I wanted to mention that what we are presenting tonight is actually a draft calendar allowing for 10 professional development days in both elementary and secondary. The way the current legislation is written, that's only available to elementary. However, as mentioned, we have been presenting to the state and are hoping that that bill will pass so that secondary will also have 60 hours of professional development. If we need to come back, we will make those changes and then make it very clear on the calendars. We may in fact divide the calendars so that you have elementary and secondary calendars so that it's not so confusing for families. But we've got the Labor Day holiday there in September, and then we have a professional development day after that on September 2nd, giving for a little bit longer weekend for our students. Another professional development day on October 8, which would then lead into our fall break of 2 days on October 9 and 10. Professional Development Day in November, that's a Monday, November 3rd, leading then into Election Day on November 4 on that Tuesday. And as you might remember, we are now required to be closed for Election Day because some of our schools will be used as polling locations. We have the Veterans Day holiday on November 11, and then our Thanksgiving holiday, November 26 to 28. Just a quick note, Board Member Miller was very kind to point out to me, if you look at the actual calendar, the text is correct, but I believe on the calendar, the text is not correct. So it is the 26th through the 28th. The calendar block is correct, but I just had those dates incorrect on there, but I will get that corrected on our calendars. So your list is correct. And then we move into Independence High School having their winter graduation, of course, in December. Our winter break, we aligned with APS, with Albuquerque Public Schools. We know that is a very important thing for many members of our community, not only for our students and staff here who may have family members or parents who are in APS, but we want to make sure that we're aligning with that. So we are. Then we return for a day of professional development before the students return. We've got a holiday with Martin Luther King Day in January and our President's Day holiday in February, which then leads into another professional development day, which will allow for another long weekend for students. We have a professional development day on March 27, which happens to be a Friday. That will lead us into a spring break. You may notice that spring break's a little bit later than it has been in the past, but again, we did that to align with APS. They already had their set, and so we wanted to make sure that we were aligning with them. We have that vernal holiday on April 6th, and then professional development day following that. Our graduation dates are to be determined. Part of that, again, is we're waiting on a little bit more information from PED and from the state, but we will get those dates figured out as soon as we possibly can. This year, we do have to go a little bit longer. We're going to go past Memorial Day, which I know we've wanted to avoid that in the past, but we just didn't have a way to get around it this year. So that our last day of school will then be May 28th. And at the request of Dr. Cleveland and some members of the community, we have added in a makeup snow day, which would be that next day. So that if we do indeed have a snow day next year in our calendar, I know we haven't had one yet this year, but if we have one next year, we would have a built-in day so students could actually have a snow day. So we have definitely heard that from the community. One thing you might notice when looking at this is we don't have two set dates in November or March for our elementary conferences. That's because we are looking at some alternatives to the way we can conduct our conferences next year. And the proposal right now our elementary team is working on is making the month of November and then the month of March available to our teachers to schedule those conferences at their convenience with families. We hope that will be an alternative that will be helpful to folks. Many folks find it difficult to come in, especially if they have children in multiple schools, or we may find that our staff gets everything done prior to those 2 days anyway. And so we didn't feel like it was a good use of the time, of the district's time. But if anyone has any specific questions about the conferences, Jana Chenault has so kindly offered to come up and answer any questions. So I'll put you on the hot seat there. But at this time, I will go ahead and stand for questions on the traditional instructional calendar.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything before we go to questions?
The only thing that you might want to be aware of, and so far we're not seeing it develop, at least we don't think it is, a concern was raised about graduations and having graduations earlier, that in fact, when students were no longer here, we would lose that revenue. And so, we've really tried to make it very clear why we think that's not a good idea. I mean, I can't even imagine how Albuquerque would handle that with the number of high schools they have. Las Cruces, I think, has 7 graduations. We have 4. And I don't know any place in the country that makes students go to the very last day for seniors. And some of that is, okay, well, they're not in school and you don't need the funding for them. Students in high school, has been my experience, having taught in high school for many years, is they're done in the middle of May. I mean, you can make them come, but they're pretty much finished. But a much more important reason is that CNM begins its summer program early, and if we make them go to the very end of May, they can't attend that first summer session. And a lot of our students here in Rio Rancho go to that first summer session at CNM. They'd be locked out of that. So we're hoping that that does not come up, but that was a real concern. It was raised if you let them out 2 weeks early, you're going to lose the revenue for those students. And that would hurt our district. So we're monitoring that right now. We hope that in this sense that common sense prevails because, like I said, I think they're through learning at that point in high school stuff. But many of them do have summer jobs to go to. They have CNM to go to. They have other things. And it also cuts them out of some of the summer employment, if you can't report until sometime in June. So that's something we're watching. I just want you to be aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board, Jeff? Anything? No. Gary?
I just want to make sure that the Native American community, because I know we have so many families, and I bring it up every year, but All Kings Day is on January 6, 2026, the first day that students return. So I know every pueblo celebrates All Kings Day. So I don't know if Suzanne or if that was discussed with the community, because I know it means a difference to 1,000 families in this community. Yeah. So
We have already been in discussion with our Native community about that topic. We're waiting to see if the bill passes. We'd like to have a conversation with our Native community about perhaps a compromise that we could all be happy with. And so Suzanne has reached out to one of the parents who wrote us a very nice letter wanting us to explore that issue. So we're already in conversation. I can tell you what, someone would like to keep the mortarboard being the same for all students to symbolize that we are all one class and we are all in this together, but honoring the Native dress in terms of the clothing and the shoes, the moccasins, all of the leis, all of that kind of thing, to see if we can find something that we could all live with. But of course, whatever the statute eventually says is what we will do, we will comply with. But we already are in the process of having discussions with them.
Okay. Any other questions from the board or comments?
Board member, we good? Board member Jeff Morgan, I'm making a motion to approve the consider of the draft instructional calendar for the 25-26 school year.
Board Member Miller, I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much.
So much. At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Christopher Johnson to come up and speak to you about the Rio Tech calendar.
Okay. I have to say, I was so excited when I opened up this calendar and I saw the professional development days. I just was like, this is wonderful. So I hope that we can do that. Go ahead.
President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, members of the board. So part of the conversations we've had with the instructional calendar, and I do sit on that calendar committee, is looking at the uniqueness of having students who are attending high school for some part of the day and then college for the other part of the day. So we really looked at the calendars for CNM and Rio Rancho Public Schools and tried to mesh them as closely as possible. One of the big differences is certain holidays that CNM does not observe, that Rio Rancho does, and our students still have to come to school on those days because they do have classes. So we were trying to find ways to kind of work with that calendar. CNM doesn't start till September 2nd. So we would have August 4th, we would start traditionally July 30th, 31st, and August 1st as our PD days, which is the same as the district. August 4th, students start, and that's where we'd get a bulk of our instructional time with them. And then as we move into September and October, we would sprinkle in the PD days. Labor Day is one of the holidays that CNM does have, so we would have that day off. The Thanksgiving break would only be Thursday, Friday, because of the fact that CNM still has classes that Wednesday of Thanksgiving break, so they would only have Thursday, Friday off. And then December, the intent is to finish by December 15th. CNM finishes on December 14th. So the students would start their winter break on December 15th because of the missed holidays for fall break and things like that. In the spring term, students would return back on January 6th. Again, CNM doesn't start till January 12th. Martin Luther King observance for that holiday is the 19th. CNM and Rio Rancho do observe that as well. February, March, and April is a long haul because there is no spring break. So we've tried to find ways to do some PD days in there if the 10 days does get approved. So that way we are able to kind of give students and teachers kind of a little break in there. CNM would end at the end of April, April 26th. And then we would look at wrapping up our school year on May 19th, which gives students the opportunity to take summer classes. Our digital media is an associate, so they are required to take summer classes. So that's why we've decided to go with this calendar. And I'll stand for questions.
Yeah, questions. Gary Tripp, questions on this?
The question about funding, do we lose funding when our kids aren't in school and then in the summer school, do the kids have to pay for summer school with CNM or in that center?
No, so summer school for CNM, as long as they're a dual credit, my understanding is they will not have to pay for that.
Okay.
And I believe the instructional days turn out to be the same on both calendars.
Okay.
And you still meet the 1140 hours, and that's that's critical. I wonder, and I think what drives some of this is CNM has a union and they have a contract, and their teachers adhere to that contract. So we have to make some adjustments. I kind of wonder what's going to happen in March, just to be honest, of whether our students are going to come when their brothers and sisters and others are out for the week on spring break, and whether they're going to show up. But I guess we'll find out. Hopefully they will. And it's just a rethinking. Change, as I said, is hard. But I think that, our students will step up and do the right thing. But I see that as the biggest challenge on this calendar is the loss of that spring break for them.
And I do know that over the past 2 years, we have had that spring break at the CNM Rio Rancho campus where our students for welding and computer networking are showing up that Monday through Thursday for their classes. So they did show up. We did not provide them transportation, and they did show up.
Yeah, so that's good. I just think probably as our students do enroll, we just need to make sure that we have that out there, that they understand that as they enroll into this is what the calendar is going to look like, right?
And we're really enforcing it with them. You are college students too. And so you need to act and behave as a college student.
Yeah, it's different. Other questions, Jessica?
I just have a procedural question because we jumped the gun on that.
We're okay. Yeah, so we're going to vote on this one as well.
No, I know, but all the items were under one agenda item, and now we've already made the motion and took action. So is it okay? If we just do another motion under that? Yeah, okay.
I texted the lawyer in the middle.
So we need to do two?
Yeah, so we'll vote on this one as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if there's no other questions, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Other questions, or you guys good? I'll make a motion to approve the Rio Tech 25-26 school year instructional calendar draft.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, a second.
We have a motion and a second, and all in favor on this?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. I had to say. Yeah. All right. Our next item is to consider the additional nomination for the new School Board Association Excellence in Student Achievement Award. And so last meeting we had two, and we did Julian Garza and also Craig Brandt. But one of the board members, Gary Tripp, was asking if possibly we could nominate another one. So I'm going to pass it to him to nominate another. And still, since this is honors, if there's anyone else that anyone thought of and would like to nominate, we can do that as well at this time. But Gary Tripp.
Thank you, Madam President, fellow board members. I would also like to nominate Carl Leppelman, who, with his outstanding professionalism and what he did for this community for the last 30-some years. He led a school, he led curriculum, he led with his leadership for the entire district. And I think we all know Carl in this room, and I think we could create even a better language than I'm warranted in trying to honor him with. But I would recommend Carl Leppelman for the award as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that nomination. I think it's a great nomination. When Gary brought it up, I was like, yes, of course. I still feel like when I look out, I should see Carl sitting out there. And so we should just maybe put a little standalone thing out for Carl. But I love that. Dr. Lewin, did you want to say?
It's just a very worthy nomination. And when Gary raised it, I thought the same thing. Someone that worked for most of the history of the school district, as a principal, district office person, and he just gave so much of himself over those years. So it's a wonderful nomination.
Yeah, that's great. Are there any other nominations at this time? Okay, with that, we'll go to a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the nomination for the new School Board Association Excellence in Student Achievement Award for Carl Leppelman.
Thank you. And I'll second it. Gary Tripp.
We have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Gary Tripp, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, Board Member Tripp, for having us add that. Okay, our next two items will be by Michael Madrid, our Director of Purchasing and Chief Procurement Officer. We'll first consider the award for RFP number 2025-016-COO Special Education Program Review.
Superintendent Dr. Cleveland, members of the board, the action item request this afternoon is to award RFP 2025-016-COO for special education program review to the highest ranked offer, Gibson Consulting Group Incorporated. The scope of work includes the review of the process and procedures within K-12 special services program. The review is designed to evaluate the program's efficiency, effectiveness, and compliance with relevant regulations and policies, identify inconsistencies and irregularities, and offer actionable recommendations for improvements. Excuse me. The solicitation, we received 6 responses. Responses were received from Afton Partners, CLA, which is Clifton Larson Allen LLP, Gibson Consulting Group Incorporated, Learning Little People LLC, Public Consulting Group LLC, and Wested. As is typical, when we get the proposals, we do a pass-fail verification to ensure compliance. All documentation affidavits were received, and all vendors were deemed responsive and were eligible for evaluation by the evaluation team. Recommendation this afternoon is to award this procurement to the highest ranked offer, Gibson Consulting Group Incorporated.
Okay, Dr. Cleveland, do you want to add anything on this?
Just that we've been talking about doing this for quite a long time, and as I said in my introductory remarks, we want to identify those things that we're doing really well, and we should continue to do and replicate. We're also looking at there's some areas we could be more efficient, and perhaps there's some different things we haven't even thought of in terms of our programs. So it's just a look at our program, always with the focus of how can we do something better than we're doing it right now. But we also want to capture those things that we are doing really well already. So that's the purpose of this study.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I'm just curious, how long do you think this will take, this study?
We still need to negotiate the sequence of events and the deliverables. Once we get the approval from the board, we'll start that contract negotiation. We would, I guess, envision about a 6-month schedule.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board on this? We'll consider a motion.
I'll make a motion to award RFP number 2025-016-COO, the Special Education Program Review to Gibson Consulting Group Incorporated.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, a second.
We have a motion and a second, and let's go ahead and do a roll call vote on this one.
Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Tyler?
Yes.
Board Member Tripp?
Yes.
Board Member Miller?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, our next is consider the award for RFP number 2025-017-FAC, Architect Design Services for Cleveland High School Classroom Addition and Security Vestibule Upgrade. So once again, Michael Madrid.
For President Galbraith, Superintendent Dr. Cleveland, members of the board, the requested action this afternoon is for the board to approve the award of RFP 2025-017 FAC, Architectural Design Services for Cleveland Classrooms and Security Vestibule Upgrades to McLean plus U Architect Design Services. The architectural firm will be providing comprehensive design services for classroom additions and a security vestibule upgrade at Cleveland High School. The scope of work summary includes site analysis, conceptual design, the developing of construction documents and permitting assistance, ensuring compliance with applicable codes and district standards, The firm will coordinate with district stakeholders, consultants, and regulatory agencies to develop cost-effective, functional, and secure design solutions. Construction administration services could also include the review of submittals and construction observation services. I just want to give a little more detail on the scope of work. The program and design portion of it is for a new classroom building, which would include 8 classrooms. Program design for a cafeteria extension/addition. The security upgrades would include a CMU perimeter wall, main secure lobby upgrades, and design and secure lobby vestibules between the gym and the cafeteria. The other thing I want to express about McLean U plus architects, they do have extensive experience in K-12. They also have experience with Rio Rancho Public Schools. Most recently, they were the design consultant for the Colinas del Norte Elementary School HVAC replacement project. And currently, they are partnering with SMPC for the new Independence High School. In response to the solicitation, we received 12 proposals. I'm not going to read the proposal names unless you want me to. They're listed there. All firms were deemed responsive and were eligible for evaluation, and recommendation is that the board approve the evaluation committee's recommendation to the highest ranked offer, McLean plus U Architect and Design.
Okay, Dr. Cleveland, do you want to add anything?
Just a question, because I've forgotten. How many classrooms will this build?
8.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, I got one.
Go ahead.
I didn't see, and you might, I think you kind of talked about what was going to be added, but I didn't see a design. Do you have one yet?
So that's what, yeah, this is.
Okay, all right, okay. You read off the list like you already had an eye. That's just an idea of what you want to do, right?
Correct. The
Okay,
scope of
man.
work. So what we do is we develop an idea of what the project consists of, and then we come up with a project estimate that we give to the architect to design around.
Okay, good enough, man. I just wanted to see what it looked like. That's all.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
And oh, by the way, you don't want to read off the 12. I'm sitting there saying to myself, what if you would have selected 8 of these guys? We would have had to read all 8. I'm just throwing it out there for you. Just to go right in. It's just one, okay?
This is one of those few that we're not doing a multiple.
Thank you, by the way. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to award RFP number 2025-017-FAC Architect Design Services for Cleveland High School Classroom Addition and Security Vestibule Upgrade to McLean and U Architecture and Design.
Board Member Jeff Morgan, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and JC will take a roll call vote for us.
Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Tyler?
Yes.
Board Member Tripp?
Yes.
Board Member Miller?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, board.
Thank you. Just as we were looking at this one, just to Dr. Cleveland, as I was thinking about money and where everything's going and different projects we're doing, I'd really like, and I'll forget if I don't ask now, but I would like to have an update on our bond and where that money is going and how and what the projects look like right now. So if we could do that in the next couple of board meetings, I would appreciate. That would be a good thing. And because I think we've had some updates kind of spread throughout, but it'd be good to have just an update on everything at one time. Okay, going into advanced planning. So our next meeting will be March 10th. And then we have elementary school conferences, 13th and 14th. Spring break is coming up, not soon enough, but 17th through the 20th. And then March 24th, we have a regular meeting, as well as April 14th. Any questions on any upcoming things on the calendar?
I don't have any questions, but Peggy, can I see you afterwards if you don't mind, please? Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right, then our meeting's adjourned for tonight. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you. I only have my pencil. Jessica, I have something for you to sign here.